Good morning, everyone. Oh, I guess it's afternoon where I'm at. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. So we are, it's the 24th of December. We're going to go over the astrology for the week leading up to our official first new moon of 2022, which is actually going to be in Capricorn on the 2nd of January. So we're looking at the fourth quarter with this astrology report. And also very specifically, we're going to be looking at the astrology for this weekend because it's just astounding. And the astrology for the week is also just as impactful. Like, this is just it's such a dynamic and incredibly challenging time, it all wrapped into one that there's so much to talk about. So we'll hit the highlights, right? Because it's holiday weekend and people are out and about with their families doing stuff, whatever you are doing this weekend, as long as you're finding some peace of mind, some joy, contentment, nourishment, and a sense of love and companionship. And even if you find yourself not with anybody in particular, I still really hope and pray for everybody to get exactly what they need this weekend, in terms of, the transition into the winter, right? Well, at least in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's the transition into summer, right? The shifting of the cycle of light has an impact on us, no matter how you interpret it through your own structure of value and meaning and possibly dogma. So welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're new here, thanks for stopping by and checking it out. So I spent a marathon yesterday, spent a marathon of recording yesterday of all of the astrology forecast horoscopes already recorded. They'll be uploaded throughout the day. So just keep an eye out for that if you are interested in getting an insight, a little bit deeper insight into how this week's astrology may be impacting you and in the areas of your life. That is what we look at when we look at a horoscope. You look at your rising sign in particular, and then the moon, and then the sun sign. And I tend to do all of those things, at least when I was listening to other people's horoscopes a lot. And you can get a much fuller picture when you look at a number of different angles, because there's relevance there for all aspects of each sign. So like I said, just keep an eye out on whatever platform you prefer. They'll be uploading throughout the day. This is a general report for the transits and the aspects throughout the week, to get into more detail about them. So it's a great way to complement the astrology forecast per sign, because then I have the time right now to go into the transits themselves. But it was definitely a marathon, and I was up till 2:00 recording everything. So I definitely slept in today, and we are way behind schedule. But again, it's a holiday weekend. People aren't even working today, if you know what I mean. So if they're even working at all. So things are up in the air, and it's certainly a casual Friday as far as casual Fridays go. So if you are here either on the live stream or the replay, thank you for taking the time to be part of this process. So it's Friday. The moon is in Virgo now. That was just, I am very grateful. The Leo moon was just very intense, and maybe more intense for certain signs than others. But the opposition to Jupiter, right as we shifted over into the 24th in terms of the time, on the clock, so to speak, that opposition with Jupiter at the last degree of Aquarius and part of a grand square, it was pretty brutal, but it also was very illuminating, right? There are parts of us that cannot remain suppressed, that they must be shared, they must come out. And the area of life that was really expressing itself in is part of why you want to watch the astrology forecast to see how that may be impacting you. We had the Saturn Uranus square become exact. Also last night, Wow. And that will reverberate out for the next couple of days. That has been building. Oh my gosh, that has been building. And I felt, for me personally, a pretty significant release as a result of that exact configuration and then coming off the other side of it. Doesn't mean that it's still not going to have shock waves, depending on how it may have manifested within your own life. But I also feel like that was such the build up so much with that square and with the grand square that we're going to see in the chart. It was, you don't, especially a grand square, you're not getting out of that, right? That is a container and a structure that we have no choice but to confront and to find our infinite self within it, right? This is the possibility of transmutation in general. So those grand squares, and it was with the nodal axis of the moon, right? And so then you have this karmic element where the nodes are still in Gemini and Sagittarius for a little while longer. There is so much accounting for our karmic and soul's journey. There is an incredible release, combustion within each of our souls and how we feel and our emotional landscape that absolutely could not be suppressed anymore. And it was really Jupiter in that opposition, as we're going to see, that if we have been working consciously as Jupiter's moved through Aquarius, it has not been easy. It really has not. It has forced us to stay so singularly focused on the full picture of the social organism and the society in general and what Aquarius represents, which is the energy that moves throughout the natural organic matrix, right? Or the false one, right? Or the old one. It's all connected to the energy. Well, Aquarius is all connected to the energy that moves throughout that geometric fractal expression of reality as we know it. And depending on which one you're aligned with, as we've talked about many times, the expression of Aquarius is going to be a little bit different for everybody. But if you've been consciously working with it, allowing Jupiter to show some tough love in some ways, right? Is Jupiter's all about, and Zeus was always giving everything you needed as long as you were staying in line with the value system that ultimately it was his responsibility to defend and be in charge of. So as soon as you stepped out of line, there was definitely a punishment. And as much as it may have felt like that, or felt like that we were left to fend for ourselves and not really understanding what it is we've been training ourselves and disciplining ourselves for, it is because that singular laser focus of Aquarius was really like lightning bolts getting, shot at our feet every time. Every time we started to stray away from the path, there was something that brought us back, although it was, very electric. And, that is what Zeus did. He threw the thunderbolts to punish people. And the thunderbolts were actually brought on the back of Aquila, the eagle, which is in the constellation of Aquarius, right? Or in the sign of Aquarius, excuse me. Aquila is its own constellation, but it's in the zodiacal sign of Aquarius, right? And so there's a very strong connection with Aquarius and the eagle and Jupiter, right? There is a connection there. And so it may have felt like we have been burned or zapped constantly and not understanding why. But when Jupiter comes into Pisces this week on the 28th, it's just going to be like a sigh of relief, right? We're just going to be able to just release ourselves into the experience of being part of the whole. And again, expansive resources, when the resources that we had been aligned with or had the opportunity to receive as a result of Jupiter's bestowment, right? And I'm a Jupiter ruled person for, through and through. I got a huge Sag stellium. So it's a real big part of my personality, for better or for worse. And you learn very much to harness the best possible aspects of it and to be very real with yourself about the dark side of Sagittarius and Jupiter, which is highly judgmental and self-righteous and, kind of exploitive of your own power and knowledge at times. So I know this is a lot to take in, and we'll go through the chart and just kind of go through it. And there's so much information in the horoscope videos. I'm looking forward to uploading them. But this is just, it's remarkable what's happening. And when we get to the new moon on the 2nd, I mean, you can sum it up in one phrase: let it burn, right? Wherever Capricorn is in your chart, wherever is connected to this particular degree, 12 to 13 degrees, 13 degrees, 13 degrees, let it burn. Let it burn away, because it is the fire of purification that is going to do the job that we needed to do. So it's not been easy, but I feel like there's a massive tension that just got released with Saturn and Uranus finally coming into that square and really just making it impossible to avoid those aspects coming together. And we'll get into more detail about what that really means. So I'm just going to check in with the bots on my chat and get rid of them. I can't believe how many are here. So they're either bored or they're spreading out, or as somebody had said yesterday, that I must be over the target, and that's why I'm being inundated with bots in my chat. So whatever, that's fine. I guess that's a good sign, and it's just as easy as clicking on them and removing them, but they keep coming back. So clearly reporting them doesn't mean shit to YouTube, right? Anyway, hold on one second, guys. I am gonna take a drink of this tea here. Okay. So let's get right into it, so as not to waste your time or mine, because there is so much going on. But remember, the new moon, first new moon of 2022, what a great time to set intentions for so much of this cycle that started with the December solar eclipse. The new moon in Sagittarius, that was a total solar eclipse, which was about the emergence of that which needs to be cleared away from previous cycles in order to have a pure start to a new development. And if we do not acknowledge that, if we do not allow it to come up to the surface, to be burned away and to be purified. Remember, Sagittarius is the alchemical fire. If we are resisting it in any way or ignoring it, it will still make its way up. I mean, we have till the end of this eclipse cycle, which is May 2022, to really come into alignment with this reconciliation, with purification, whatever it means to you. This is the window to really get ourselves aligned with a purified soul and spirit. Because once we pass May of 2022, it's a different ball game entirely. And so a lot of this time is also going to be when the nodal axis shifts into Taurus and Scorpio, and the Pleiadian revival is going to be a big part of these next couple of months to assist us into following the pathway of our soul's evolution into alignment with what is, right? With what is provided already, what our natural assets and resources are. And as powerful as Scorpio is, and as powerful as the South Node in K2 is to provide momentum, it is the South Node. And Scorpio does represent how we build an economy, for instance. I do feel like that the economy is, in general, and the mechanisms of resources and how they're created, how we participate in creating them, which is Scorpio, or certainly Taurus, which is the pure objective experience of what is and the value of it. There's going to be a change, and we're in this really important window right now, and this is why I'm offering so many of these videos for free. I'm not putting them behind a paywall at all. I'm offering a lot of my readings constantly at this really, this discount, not for my benefit, because it's important for people to really, I think this is my mission, what I'm here to do. So it's also worth it to possibly take advantage of a December solstice reading, to look at your chart and how the the season that is marked by the December solstice is going to be impacted in your chart, right? So for 30-minute recorded reading, $44. For a 60-minute recorded reading is $77. This is a steal in terms of astrological and intuitive readings. So all you have to do is just research it. You'll know. And this will give you an idea of the areas of life that will be impacted. And this is what I did too with the emergence eclipse readings, the same basic time frame for what the eclipses were bringing up for everybody. So again, consider it. This is a great time to really start to go deeper, because it is, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, we're going into winter now. This is not coming out of it. We are now in the depths of like hibernation mode. So anyway, guys, I'm going to we're gonna go into the chart and just get into it. I could just ramble all day, and anybody who knows me knows that I don't leave out a single detail, which is why it's very difficult for me to just give you your sound bite, because as valuable as I find the ability to consolidate information, for me it's weaving a story, and every single element of that story is an important part of that story, right? You don't cut out, just when you're weaving a pattern together or weaving together some sort of substance, you can't just leave out things. At least that's how I'm doing it. Now, everybody has their own way of doing things. So, but every detail is important. And so if you're in it for the long haul, then we are in good company with each other. So, my friends, let's again look at where we are right now. So I'm going to pop over to this window. I'm going to minimize myself and go right here. All right, my friends. So here's the 24th. This is where we're at right now. So as I said, the moon was in an opposition last night at the very last degrees of Leo, and Jupiter at the last degrees of Aquarius. This is where it's at still right now, the 28th, right? The 28th is when Jupiter moves into Pisces. So again, sigh of relief, a release, just an expansion into the experience of being part of the whole, as opposed to the consistent agitation and electrifying energy of Aquarius that keeps us in a singular point of focus. It has not been easy at all, but there's so much so many resources that will be expanded upon when Jupiter comes into Pisces. Spiritual resources of passion and forgiveness and unconditional love, right? And resources when it comes to Jupiter has to do with understanding and the search for real meaning. So, certainly where it's at in your chart is going to give you an indication of what type of resources or what area of life. But for the most part, it's the deep inner meaning that Jupiter represents as some sort of teacher. The Hierophant, there was a lot of the Hierophant that was coming up in people's, in the astrology, the forecast readings, and with Jupiter coming into Pisces. And we saw that in the transmission this week. The Hierophant is represented by Jupiter in Pisces, right? The vision of eternity, the meaning that is beyond any boundary or beyond any type of dogma or a sense of human created belief systems or religions or philosophies. It is timeless and it's infinite, and it's in direct connection to the Great Spirit or Source or God or the universe. It's going to, just hang in there, guys. I mean, it's not going to solve all problems, but it's going to be like getting into a warm, soaking pool in some ways, and you're like, ugh, finally. So I'm looking forward to that very, very much as a Jupiter ruled person. So now, before this happened, though, like I said, the moon and Jupiter in this opposition, and you don't see it on this chart, but with the nodal axis of the moon, it created that grand square. And I spoke a lot about that in the horoscopes, that this is a grand square is not something that you get out of. It contains you. So when you have it in the birth chart, for instance, it is a blueprint for serious conflict in the life of the individual based on what, the positions and the points of the corners of the square are. in galactic astrology, when we read for star seeds, these types of aspect patterns, actually, especially a grand square, and especially if the corners are starseed markings, it is keeping you on task, right? It keeps you from diverting off of your mission when you have these grand squares. So for as challenging as they are, I feel like what it has presented was an opportunity to really just be realistic and to find, again, our infinite self in the middle of this structure of conflict and challenge. And it had a lot to do with not only the soul's karmic journey with the nodal axis of the moon, as we see here, and it would be in Sagittarius up here if it was shown, but it's also too with a deep sensitivity that we have all felt over the last couple days of our sovereign nature, our authentic voice, right? To be acknowledged for who we truly are. Now, some people expressed it very strongly. Other people were just feeling it very intensely. And if we, it's like the Kundalini cannot be suppressed anymore. It must be released and it must be shared. I mean, all of that devotional work is meant to be offered into the realm of Virgo, which is where the moon is now. So it really just kind of reached like this climax yesterday into this morning, and then Saturn and Uranus, which are still in a very tight square as of right now, came right at the same time. And so now that Saturn has moved into the next degree of Aquarius and representing the graduated staircase to heaven, right? That everybody is on a different step, and that there's a natural progression in some ways to our own growth process, right? If you look in nature, and because that is the highest version of Aquarius, is an organic matrix that is able to hold the consciousness of the Great Spirit, right? That moves throughout the collection of these nodes, which is Leo, right? We're all feeling very deeply and very sensitively and intensely us as a node and wanting to release our full power as a node, which is really important. And there was so much energy from that opposition in Grand Square last night that could be harnessed if we were aware of what it represented. But Saturn now keep in mind, Mercury is going to move into Aquarius and station retrograde at this degree, roughly. I think it might be more like 10 to 11 degrees. But so put a pin in this right now, because Mercury is going to come and reach this point and then station retrograde and come back into Capricorn. So Saturn here is the backbone, right? Saturn is literally the staircase. It is the actual form of material reality that there is no getting around. It is our responsibility. It is the atom, its atomic structure, right? It's not something that naturally is able to be separated. It took technology by humanity in order to do that, to split the atom. So you can see that in its natural state, this is the most cohesive structure, is Capricorn, and is represented by Saturn. Now in Aquarius, which is also very powerful, it is the energy that is pervasive in the structure of all of these nodes connected together. And there is a natural progression, and everybody's exactly where they need to be. And this is a very hard lesson to accept right now. And there's no getting around this, because we want everybody to be where we are, because we think that where we are is the right place to be. And when you kind of take a step back a little bit and realize that we're all equal in the eyes of the Great Spirit, and we're all on our own evolutionary track. I saw something today, actually, on social media. It was like a Dolores Cannon quote, and she was like, basically, I'm paraphrasing, be mindful about trying to save other people, Chiron. You might interrupt their own evolutionary journey. And this is Saturn in Aquarius right now to a T. We have to accept this and take some responsibility for this and be mature about it. Now, and then you have a square to Uranus right now. Uranus is playing such a trickster role right now, because in its retrograde, we are all internalizing this experience of we're shopping around for realities, physical, material realities, because it's Taurus, right? We're shopping around, we're window shopping, we're scrolling through all of these potentials within us. What do we want? What can we have? What appeases our senses? What can we acquire as a result of our social ambition, right? It's a degree that is youthful and hasn't been through the trenches yet, and it represents just kind of this really optimistic but not making any commitments necessarily, because it's about the ego becoming aware of what it is out there that we can have, and it's a natural process. You're talking about the fundamentals of life here when you're talking about Aries and Taurus, right? The seed and the soil, and we have been through this retrograde of Uranus, through the disruption, through the consistent reorientation. Perhaps things are turning sideways in terms of our assets and our currency and our material wealth, or just our bodies, our land, right? Our physical possessions. All of these are represented by Taurus. There certainly has not been any stability here, but the trick that I think Uranus is truly playing on us is the fact that just because there's variability means that we can actually change what's going on over here with Saturn. And Saturn's pretty staunchly embedded here, just like it is everywhere, which is this is what it is, right? We're all going through this event horizon together, but we are all going as a result of our own unique position in the process. And the aspect of Uranus certainly is a trigger for awakening. It always is in the natal chart. It is a trigger for awakening, because when you turn sideways, or you have a crisis psychologically, or there is no stability in that area of life, it's going to change your perspective and allow you to transcend out of the material into the spiritual, and into the energetic, and into the quantum realm. But it's in the mind, right? It is the third eye opening. And I've gotten a distinct sense, very strongly actually, in the last couple of days, just how trickster-like Uranus is with this right now. Because it is... and not everybody is falling for it, I guess. But what I would say is that just because we have the potential to scroll through or to window shop what it is we actually want, it does not mean that we can change the course of what is happening, right? The idea that nothing can stop what is coming is that it's already here. It already exists, and we're all going up the escalator or whatever, right? Climbing up. And so instead of wanting people to be where we are, or instead of us wanting to be somewhere else and having a lot of having a lot of maybe envy or judgment or whatever it is. And of course, Saturn has, is a ruler, right? I mean, it has the final word in a lot of ways in terms of the material reality and what it takes to actually accomplish things. But we're all going up together, and we're all going to fall into the black hole together, and we're all going to do it in our own unique way, which is in alignment with our evolutionary journey. And it may not be what each of us wants. And this square is certainly showcasing that to a point where the best way to release the tension of this is to just lean into how absolutely that uncomfortable that is, because like I said, this is a trickster, right? Uranus is a trickster. It does things, and just, we wouldn't wake up if we anticipated what was coming. And that's the whole real magic of Uranus, is that the third eye opening is such a drastic and dramatic experience that it requires that something gets turned sideways in order for us to do it. And that also will challenge a sense of stability, security, and a really embedded skeletal system. So one of the things that I said in the horoscopes or the astrology forecast videos is that if you don't allow for some variability here, if you don't allow yourself the opportunity to still engage in the lack of stability by window shopping what it is that you actually want and the world you want to be embedded in, if you don't give yourself at least some space to allow for this experience, it will cause damage in Saturn, broken bones, you know what I mean? It's structural damage, and that will be very difficult to resolve or heal. So just like with all squares, there's no resolving it. You just have to lean in and learn as much as you can from the discomfort. And Saturn and Uranus there's no joke. So we still have a couple more days, I would say, where or even longer, really. I mean, Saturn and Uranus move so slowly, but one's moving retrograde and the other's moving forward. So we're going to have some more time where this is still relevant. But when it came exact last night, I think that this was kind of like an awakening moment of like, oh, I see what's happening here. So again, it has a lot to do with where you're finding it in your chart. So when we move on to the 25th, and the moon is in Virgo fully, and I'll get into the Virgo transits because there's tons of them for today and tomorrow as well. I just want to get through these big transits that are going on, and then we'll kind of get down to more of the detail of the weekend, because the third quarter moon on Sunday, the 26th, is really, really important to understand, because it's going to seem counterintuitive at first. And those third quarter moons, when they square the sun, that is a crisis in consciousness. And it's really important that we understand how we feel versus what we do is going to be very much in cross purposes with each other, and how they're not meant to be mutually exclusive, but we have to understand where they are meeting in an angle so that we aren't getting pulled into believing that it has to be one or the other, because that's not what it is at all. It's just, again, all these squares are so challenging and confrontational, but they also are where real problems are solved. So now the 25th, this is when you can see here that Venus in her retrograde is going to meet Pluto again. This already happened once for the first time, and Venus came and met Pluto, and it was pretty impactful, right? And I think it was, in some ways, it kind of came out of nowhere for some people. We can certainly anticipate these things, but you can never intellectualize it to the point where it takes the place of your experience of it. And I know for me, it was very substantial in my body. I experience Venus transits in my physical body, in all types of ways. So that was pretty impactful. But now on the 25th, they're going to meet again. Now Venus is coming back to the same position. She's now retrograde. I feel like there has been some time now for this very deep inventory and to that we're introspective, maybe tuning in even deeper into our body and to our value and our self-worth when it comes to what we're creating together, right? Capricorn is about the social and political power that is created as a result of people coming together and under some banner of very significant meaning and understanding. So it's very much what we are contributing to as a whole, and that's creating something very material and long lasting. So there is this particular degree that Pluto has been sitting at, and certainly now that Venus is here, it has a lot to do with the underlying spiritual energy that actually moves through the physical world, and how much that really is the essence of all of it, which you realize when you come into the 12th house and Pisces, because that is the mutable water that flows through. It is the field, the quantum field of everything in the universe is this field that is fluid. So 26 degrees of Capricorn is the realization of this, a very strong realization of this. So it's a very... At this point, though, it's a lot more mature, it's more internalized, and I do feel like that it's also going to be a little bit easier because it'll be much more of a potentially an offering up to Pluto, if that makes sense, whereas the first one may have been a little shocking because we didn't know really what to expect. And now that we kind of do, and we've had some time to really go over it and go inside more and internalize this process and be like, is this valuable? Is this, does this actually hold the worth that I thought? Is this what I want to hold in my body in terms of the collective? And we may find that we are offering more density up to Pluto to be essentially destroyed, but also repurposed for transformation. So I think that on the 25th, it's going to be a lot easier. Not easier. I mean, I hesitate to say that word, but I just feel like it'll be more conscious, and we may find ourselves consciously offering up this aspect to Pluto from a sense of value and meaning and maturity, right? Like serious maturity and wisdom and grace of the feminine in the realm of what is falling away, what is being destroyed, what is being demolished in terms of our material reality, our social and political order, in order to eventually to clear the ground in order for something new to grow. And again, let it burn. It's a big part of the new moon is to acknowledge the power of fire, to revere it, to honor it, and to in some ways invite it into our own growth process throughout the month. So now, this happens on the 25th, and what else happens is that Mars and Chiron come into a trine, and Mars is in conjunction with Antares, right? The fire of God, Archangel Uriel, so these more fire, more purifying fire, and certainly the heart of the Scorpion. So the way that I've looked at it is Mars being the warrior that acts in our own self-interest and acts with bravery and courage and ambition and fearlessness, but certainly can be very hasty and impulsive as well, but is really just acting in the interest of survival and protection in a lot of ways of our ego consciousness, right? It rules Aries. So Mars rules the territory that Chiron is in. Mars is going to spit some truth and right into the eye of Chiron for all of us. And we either are going to have a profoundly healing experience with this truth that Mars is just spitting out as a result of its connection to Antares, or it's going to reinforce the victim wound, trigger our PTSD. Whatever Chiron is bringing up for us, it's either going to be profoundly healing, or it's going to just reinforce and just push people deeper into their wounds. It will go both ways, I assure you, because Mars is not holding back, right? Especially in Sagittarius. It has got the meaning of it all behind him. He is out front as the warrior acting in social justice, right? I mean, Mars in Sagittarius is the social justice warrior all day long. And thinking about like the Crusades, for instance. But with Uriel, the fire of God, Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, spitting the truth through fire. And again, profoundly healing with Chiron, or just going to reinforce our trauma, our PTSD, our victim role. It'll go one way or the other as far as I can tell. But this is also this incredible purification moment with all of this fire. So that's the 25th. I mean, let's see what... in terms of major transits, and then let's move on to the 26th. we could spend so long. So the moon moves into Libra on the 26th, and we're going to have that third quarter moon squaring the sun in the evening on Sunday. So this is where it gets interesting, as if it's not interesting enough. This is a strange juxtaposition, right? And in the square, you got cardinal earth and you have cardinal air. So on the one hand, our attention and our action and our expression in some ways is going to be drawn towards this need to finish what we've started, right? Capricorn is able to be a boss because they're still standing and going to work when people are dropping like flies, right? And there are a ton of Lyran aspects right now. What you don't see on this chart is how Juno and Pallas Athena, the two goddess asteroids, are both in conjunction with Vega right now. And then you have Mercury also in conjunction with one of the Lyran stars as well. So there is a considerable amount of Lyran energy, and the Lyran starseed signature is one of fearlessness, ambition, right? We know as Lyran starseeds, right, what it takes to get something done, and we can't afford to be suppressed or controlled in any way. This is why Capricorn is the boss, right? Nobody's telling the boss what to do. Now, but part of that is the responsibility, because Capricorn is power. So it's great power comes great responsibility, right? Well, part of this responsibility is to finish what we've started. And specifically, not just to finish what we've started, but to complete any undertaking before we seek entrance to the next phase. So unless we come to some degree of fulfillment in the realm of Capricorn, right? What we are contributing to creating, where we are releasing our power in a social setting. It's nothing. We're not going to really get anywhere, right? Truly significant. And it's going to be restless, right? A restless reaching out to the unknown. We want to reach out to the unknown. We're ready to go forward and cross this threshold. This particular degree with the sun is really having our attention and our focus be drawn towards complete what has been started before you really just go off into the unknown without even concluding what you have started. This is really, really important. Now, the thing that is going to be seemingly counterintuitive here, or is going to cause some issues with our crisis of consciousness, is that the moon in Libra is at 5 to 6 degrees, and Libra, cardinal air. This is an application of our knowledge of ourself in order to find balance, to find peace, to find justice, right? Whatever Libra represents for you, it is about the perfect form of our binding agreements and relationships. This degree is about especially with the moon, is the need to visualize our dreams and ideals in order to actually materialize them, right? It is our ability to see in our mind's eye and to clearly visualize them in that inner vision, so that we know what it is we want to materialize, right? And this is something that many people work with, is the ability to visualize exactly what we want, so that we understand what shape and form it's meant to really take. And so on the one hand, we're feeling this kind of subtle, maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's in our dreams, right? Maybe it's just a stirring that is so subtle we don't really know, but it's drawing us into an inner experience of dreaming and visualizing the next phase of what we actually want. But a lot of our attention is going to be pulled into the responsibility of power, which is to complete what you've started. And so understanding where Capricorn, especially the sun, is in your chart is going to show you what area of life you need to, that this focus is going to be drawn toward. And this is also the same area that the new moon in Capricorn is going to be, which is to let it burn. Now, it's interesting of the Sabian symbol because 6 degrees of Capricorn is the 10 logs are lying under an archway that leads to the path into the dark woods. So you stack your firewood or your logs first, right? And then you go off. And it's interesting because those logs, those 10 logs, right? The sense of completion is, what are you going to burn? Right? You need something to burn when the new moon comes around and we are worshiping fire, essentially. Take that loosely. It's more about revering and understanding the transcendental meaning of fire and what it actually provides for, which is our ability to release ourselves from the bondage of the death and rebirth cycle, because what you see is that fire represents the two aspects of that simultaneously. Consumption of fire, or consumption of resources, is the death, and the rebirth is the flame of the fire. You get the whole process in one element that is being expressed, but you have to have something to burn. Those are those 10 logs, right? Make sure you have what is stacked up that you are ready to burn on that funeral pyre with the new moon. If you don't have enough fuel, you're not going to be able to get the fire getting hot enough to actually do any kind of alchemical transmutation. So we don't want to get so caught in the fantasy realm or in the moon realm of visualizing where we're going without taking the initiative to, in real material form, actually prepare ourselves to release what is ready to go first. I'm not saying that we shouldn't visualize, and that's going to be the crisis of consciousness. That's going to be the tension or the friction in the squares that we're going to feel in that moment one way, but we're going to be drawn to be acting in another. So just be aware of that, because it has a big impact on how this new moon is going to unfold for all of us and the intention that we set. If you don't have enough fuel for your fire, it will not burn hot enough to transmute or to purify. That's just all there is to it. Sagittarius is that coal fire, right? You know that it has to burn down to those embers to even be hot enough to cook on. If you don't have enough, that can mean a lot of different things, and it depends again where it's at in your chart that it's referencing. But there's something very important about knowing exactly what cycle you are finishing, and knowing that the power of the death and rebirth is already being taken over by Pluto, and has been for a really long time. But we are finding our voice through this in this particular moment with this square. So when we come into the week, so we have the 27th here. Let me just get my notes out. As the moon moves through Libra, so we know there's going to be an opposition to Chiron, and we will be feeling, I would say, while Chiron is now direct, which has just been brutal, right? It has been brutal in terms of our inner child wounding, our trauma, and the things that we may think that we've already maybe dealt with are now going to come back and slap us in the face. And it's because it's like a test almost. Can we keep our focus again on, and our attention concentrated on the full potential of what we can be? Or are we going to allow ourselves to fall off and be pulled back into these old victim identities and the wounded healer identity, however you experience Chiron? It's going to be that much more intense now. This is why that trine with Mars at Antares with Chiron tomorrow is so important. And to have people gathered for the holidays, and to have that kind of transit. I mean, we may also find that we want to help those that are, and because the Antarian starseed is ultimately here to assist, and to assist in a very, I don't want to say maternal, because it's not necessarily maternal, but it's very feminine, right? It's the divine feminine in its darkest type of expression. And Antarian starseeds, they vibrate so high that coming into physical form is a real challenge for them. And the frustration and kind of giving into the darker side of that is a real potential with Antarian starseeds, because it's not often that they come into form. Antarians would rather stay in their higher densities and be a non-physical presence managing the Stargate that is Antares into another galaxy. That's a lot. That's a lot to work with. So we may find ourselves, especially if you are an Antarian starseed, wanting to use the battle mode, almost force people to look at their own wounding and trauma, and you may find yourself spitting that fire at people. Just be careful. Remember where Saturn is right now. We are all exactly where we're supposed to be in our own evolutionary journey, and that is the final word on it. And so the only thing that's going to crack that foundation is going to be not allowing for Uranus to have full expression of being Uranus, basically, right? Like, you don't want to be so staunchly in this form and this formation that you can't allow your third eye to open, because otherwise, how are you going to awaken to the next level? But this is this opposition with the moon and Chiron is that we will feel and really identify within each of ourselves, that representation that is going to bring something from our past or our heritage or even our own society or belief system, something that is revered as a source of balance in a chaotic situation. And so, again, the opposition will create tension, but it also will give us an opportunity to really, to really find the fulcrum, right? You don't want to get totally caught up into your own wounding, but you also don't want to slip into fantasy again, or slip into, I'm going to look for any representation of, some past mastery that is going to help me through the situation, and then just totally bypass this. So that's something to keep in mind. And if we go back a couple hours here, we're going to see that there's a yod actually with Uranus and the Libra moon and Mars. I didn't even catch that the first time around, that there is this yod or finger of God. So the sextile with Mars and the Libra moon at this point, actually right after the opposition, is really going to show us how we can transmute this energy that's leading back again to Uranus in Taurus, right? How are we going to allow this awakening process to happen without completely losing ourselves. And again, there is a need to invest our feelings and our internal drive, I would say, to find balance into a very powerful and very fiery battle mode, still in conjunction with Antares. So I just want to look at something real quick as I'm going through this. And I mean, the hits just keep on coming, guys. This week is just like, this is the week. And when we get to the new moon, it's like, let it burn, right? It's ready to be released now. But there's so much that we have to learn right now, and so much that we have to contend with, that is really actually quite a gift, if I do say so myself. So yes, there is a need to deal. There's going to be emotional crises. I mean, it's the holiday season, and we are in the midst of what is happening now. So it's just amplified. So there's an inner revelation, I think, that's going to really come with this opposition to Chiron with the moon, that then is going to lead us to finding and it'll be a dramatic confrontation, right? And of course, Mars in conjunction with Antares like this is a dramatic confrontation. There's no doubt about it. But this moon position in particular is incredibly important, because it'll allow for us to gain the self-control and the poise and a sense of calm a calmness within ourselves that we can kind of like, just tame Mars just for a little bit. Not even tame Mars, but our own emotional state will be calm and poised, and we'll be able to see things from that perspective and not be so so jostled around by not only Uranus, but also with Mars in this incredibly potent position. So by the time we get to Monday, we'll be able to start like really feeling into this need for inner balance and peace of mind, right? The moon in Libra in the tarot is the Two of Swords. Well, the moon in the first decan of Libra is the Two of Swords, peace of mind, okay? To find some sort of arrangement of our differences in that moment. And this is a transmutational finger of God, right? To Uranus is going to help us manage this consistent upheaval of our material reality, whatever that means to us. So the 28th is when Jupiter moves into Pisces by the end of the day. And also we are going to find that the 29th is when it's officially there. This is also when the sun also is in a square to Chiron. Now, Mercury's already been here. And in this particular degree. So if you remember that square before, and I've talked about it in the last series of astrology forecasts, whatever frequency band that we have been tuned into in terms of the matrix of reality that we are choosing to tune into, right? Because there's a couple options here. Now, this is much more about the power that our ego is going to find in alignment and attunement to the natural rhythm and to the frequency band of the matrix. Again, squaring Chiron. And that is going to it's either going to create a friction that will help us keep working on these wounds, another opportunity to practice keeping our attention focused on who we actually want to create for ourselves rather than what's being imposed upon us. But again, it's going to have a lot to do with the power that we are trying to find through our voice, through our action, through our expression, by aligning with the frequency band of the matrix that we are part of. So it's either the old one that's falling away, it's either the false one that's been overlaid to keep us from actually organically awakening, or it's the organic, natural matrix that if we are finding ourselves in alignment with that, even though it's in a square to Aries, it'll bring up all of the dissonance within ourselves. And it won't be easy, but we've already done it once with Mercury. And so now it's going to be certainly more illuminating and bright. And our ego is going to be a lot more involved with the sun. So it might be even more dramatic, right? Because the sun rules Leo, and Leo is all about being dramatic. And that's not a negative thing. It's just an adjective. It just describes something that is very, accentuates the features of our own ego consciousness and our own voice, right? That is what drama is. So it's going to be a dramatic confrontation, I think, but it also is going to, like I said, it's going to help us figure out where the dissonance actually is and show us in some ways like, oh, this is reinforcing these wounds, or reinforcing this trauma, or reinforcing this identity of being a victim, or whatever Chiron means to you. So it's going to come back around and be way brighter, way more dramatic, but also much more of our own self involved in our fullness. Whereas before, when it was Mercury, not just Mercury, when it was Mercury, it was way more about our nervous system and our mind, and being tapped into the frequency band of the collective or the social order. And now it's going to be much more about our empowerment in relation to that. So as we're moving up to New Year's Eve, and we also find that, look at this right here, I almost went right past it. Mercury and Venus will be in a conjunction at the same time, right? And so this is so, normally, if you take it out of the context that it's in and you just look at Venus and Mercury coming together in a transit, it's going to be really easy to tell people you love them. It's going to be really easy to express yourself to the people that you care about. It's going to be really easy to express what is valuable and meaningful to you, especially in terms of the social order or the institutions or anything that has been built as a result of human collective and cooperation, and with this retrograde of Venus, and particularly the degree there. I think that we're going to, in this conjunction, really come to a realization in our words, in our minds, perhaps even in our verbal communication or written communication and expression. What is it about our traditions and our society in general and our customs and all the beautiful things that have been woven together that Pluto has just been unraveling? I think that this is going to be kind of a bittersweet conjunction, to be honest, right? It'll be like, wow, I really, really valued that aspect of reality that is now falling away or has fallen away. Or I never realized how valuable that aspect of our society really was until it was gone. Oh, I'm feeling that really strong right now. I think that that's going to be quite a moment on the 29th. Like I said, take it out of context, and this conjunction is like makes it really easy to tell people you love them and they mean something to you. But this is much more about the society and the social institutions we have built, or reality as a whole. I think that there's going to be a recognition, especially with a retrograde Venus. There's going to be a recognition in our minds, like an awareness, a cognitive awareness of what we value about what is falling away. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are really going to have a hard time with this, especially if you are finding your empowerment in the frequency band of what is being destroyed and knowing it's never coming back, right? This is going to be a real struggle for people leading up to the new year, the new calendar year, which is going to reinforce so much more how much we need to just let it burn and just let it burn away. So that's the 29th. We come into the 30th. The moon is in Scorpio. Keep in mind here that we are getting into some pretty deep waters now in our emotions and our feelings. And speaking of Scorpio land, Mercury is then going to immediately meet Pluto right after it meets Venus, and this is going to be, again, a shepherding into the underworld. And with the moon in Scorpio at the same time, this is not going to be very difficult, right? This is going to be our ability to intuitively and maybe in our subconscious, and certainly within our emotional landscape, to go into the depth of feeling of Scorpio. But Mercury is often, or Hermes is often considered like a shepherd of wandering souls, like people who've gotten lost and need to be ferried into the underworld. So Mercury is able to go into the realm and meet Pluto and pass Pluto and come back out. So, we will have an opportunity to not only sink in emotionally to it and feel it, but use our minds to interface with the transformational power of Pluto when it comes, again, to the Capricornian matrix of reality that Pluto is just unraveling and destroying every step of the way. And Mercury is going to meet Pluto at this point and shepherd us into this place, and maybe just giving us a visual insight that we may not have fully had yet, because Mercury hasn't been here in this position with Pluto like ever in our lifetime. Maybe a year or so ago when, or 2 years ago, there's probably a point where Mercury came back around and met Pluto at this very place, because January 2020 is where Saturn and Pluto came together at the degree at 22 to 23 degrees Capricorn. So there wasn't, I retract that. I'm sure that there was a connection with Mercury at that point, at some point during that position, but I would have to go back and look for sure. But this is, we might have an awareness mentally into the, we might get a chance to look into the underworld, to actually go down there and see it for ourselves. And we will know that it's true, what we're seeing, because we'll feel it too. Look at this. It's all going to be in sextile right as it's happening. The moon is. And so we can also invest this feeling and this drive in some ways, and this sensitivity to, remember, this is very close to where the full moon lunar eclipse was, where the sun was, is at this point. And so this is a reestablishing of our commitment to these core principles. And this, I think, will allow for descent into the underworld in our own minds, and know that we will know that it's true, what we're seeing. It'll be very disturbing. I think it'll be incredibly disturbing, but you have Jupiter in Pisces right now. So at least at that point, we can all relax into the experience of being. And this is where compassion and forgiveness and unconditional love are going to be, I hesitate to say rewarded, but that's what Jupiter does. It's and good luck in that realm, and really the vision of eternity. So there will be a sense of empowerment here too, while we kind of descend very directly into the underworld and the destructive element that Pluto represents. So when we come into the New Year's Eve, which is the 31st, the moon is then going to meet Mars in Sagittarius. Mercury is, it's technically on the 31st that it seems, well, this looks a little off, but the moon is going to meet Mars at the degree of, is this familiar? Is this familiar to anybody? I'm sure it is to some people. This is the degree of the total solar eclipse that just happened, 12 to 13 degrees. So on New Year's Eve, the 31st, the moon comes and meet Mars at this very same degree. And boy, there's going to be a flare of emotions and feelings around what this is. You may find that you can't even suppress what is coming out and up as a result of Mars's battle mode, and it will be very, very strong. There's going to be some fighting words, possibly, or certainly an expulsion of feeling, or just an intensity of it, right? It could be something that subtle, that it's just intense, and it's fiery, and there is a battle that is going on as a result of it. Man, this is quite a way to bring in the new year. And so we come into the January 1st, 2022, and the moon is still moving through Sagittarius. It's going to be at the galactic center, as we see here, and everything is just kind of chugging along here. And then we get to the new moon, which is at 12 to 13 degrees Capricorn. And as I talked about already, we are going to let it burn. This is the seeds of intention that we want to set for this next new moon, guys. So I'm going to check in with the chat here. Feeling refreshed today for absolutely no good reason. Flipping through realities like Snapchat filters. Yeah, you totally get it. And I feel the same way, actually. So, and I really do. I feel refreshed, even though I had such a crazy sleep schedule, and there's nothing in particular, just like you said, no good reason. But I think the good reason here is the fact that Saturn and Uranus square, and then that grand square too, was really, it was like it released some sort of pressure. And I think that's why you may be feeling refreshed for absolutely no good reason, because it's like we just reached this pinnacle here, and finally it was just released. And we're like, oh, God. So I think there's more of that coming. Not for everybody. And the process of purification is certainly not over anytime soon. But it's nice to have a little bit of a break right now in terms of the holidays. So I know that I said I was going to go back and we'd look at the moon transits, but honestly, I think I'm just going to leave it there. I think that's plenty to work with, and there's the horoscopes for all of the signs that are going to start. I'm going to start uploading right after this uploads to BitChute and Odysee, and then I'll start the uploads of the horoscopes so you can listen to those and then get an idea of how these transits may have an impact on your personal chart, in what areas of life they're going to express themselves. And that should be plenty of information to get you through the weekend into next week. So, my friends, one thing I want to let you know here, couple announcements, just real quick. I've gone over them many times, but just to make sure that you realize here that, number one, I'm offering a gift exchange. I do this every year, that if you're willing to leave a testimonial or a review for me, then I offer you a free reading. So it's just my way of saying thank you. And as you know, small businesses, positive reviews and testimonials are like gold. So it really means a lot. And this is your positive feedback that you give in the midst of our sessions together or in comments on these videos is really important. And visibility, though, other people want to know your experiences and how you feel about it, and it actually goes a long way. So even if you haven't gotten a reading, but you're part of this community and you value these videos and this content, you can leave a review and then you get a free micro reading from me. So that's something that you can cash in on, just sending me an email that's in the description box below. Also, too, a couple offers. I already talked about the Astrology Offers and the Starseed reading. So 30 minutes for $44, 60-minute recorded reading for $77. And then also, too, I'm offering 60-minute energy work, Reiki session, plus a 30-minute intuitive reading. That's a recording as well. And I don't even remember what I'm offering it for. I promise I will look. It's all on social media. If you go to Telegram especially, just scroll up and you'll find all of those offers. So, and there'll be a transmission on Monday, but there will not be one on Tuesday. So that's the one thing I wanted to announce. So you guys have a great weekend. I truly, truly hope that it is exactly what you need, and that you find some peace of mind and some joy and some companionship, or whatever it is that you really, really need right now. That's what I hope for, and that's what I pray for everybody to get, is exactly what they need right now, and to find some refreshment in a physical way, perhaps, but also in your own soul. I think we really could use a dose of that right now, because we have so much more work to do ahead of us. And, we can really harness the astrological transits and the cosmos in general to assist us, but we really do have to, make the conscious choice, because we are in this free will type of environment, and we always have a choice in terms of who we are on the inside. But sometimes there are a lot of barriers in the way, and Chiron is it's just very hard right now with Chiron moving direct. But there is so much grace that is available to us if only we were to accept it and acknowledge it. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any other announcements. I don't think so. And even if there is, I'll just get it on social media if I feel the need to reach out. So everybody have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Keep an eye out for the astrology forecast for your sign, sun or rising sign, moon sign, sun sign, and we'll reconnect on Monday. So thank you for being here. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. And you can stick around at the end of this video and get some information about how you can support this work through Subscribestar. Really important if you want me to continue to put out this content in the way that I do, and also to get more information from my website about anything else you need. So love you guys. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and we will touch base on Monday. See ya.